welcome to another special weekend. And actually, this is a sort of special weekend because some of my recent special weekends have been focused on a song. And so it is this weekend. I'm focusing on a song. And Vlad tells me there will be 2 covers of the song I will listen to. But also, first, I'm going to listen to the original, which means I'm listening to 3 different versions of this piece this weekend. I don't know, how are you going to put that out? Because 2 days for a weekend, 3 songs? You have plans for that? Well, the song is Knockin' on Heaven's Door, and I understand that what's in front of me here, the Bob Dylan version, is the original. Knockin' on Heaven's Door is a song by American singer-songwriter Bob Dylan, written for the soundtrack of the 1973 film Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. Well, I've never watched that movie, so I guess that's why I've never heard the song. Released as a single 2 months after the film's premiere, it became a worldwide hit, reaching the top 10 in several countries. The song became one of Dylan's most popular and most covered post-1960s compositions, spawning covers from Eric Clapton, Guns N' Roses, Randy Crawford, and more. Well, be curious to find out which covers I'm listening to. Described by Dylan biographer Clinton Heylin as an exercise in splendid simplicity, the song features 2 short verses, the lyrics of which comment directly on the scene in the film for which it was written, the death of a frontier lawman who refers to his wife as Mama. It was ranked number 190 in 2004 by Rolling Stone magazine in their 500 greatest songs of all time, and number 192 in 2010. Kind of holding close to its place there, isn't it? Well, I like this description, an exercise in splendid simplicity. That's something that I sometimes talk about, is how a piece of music doesn't have to be complex in order to be just incredible, even perfect. So this intrigues me, and I'm ready to listen.
Mama, take this badge off of me. I can't use it anymore. It's getting dark, too dark to see. I feel I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, 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 knocking on heaven's door. Mama, put my guns in the ground. I can't shoot them anymore. That long black cloud is coming down. I feel I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, 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 knocking on heaven's door.
It's surprisingly riveting, even though it's so simple. You know, it just kind of takes you in and wraps you in. I guess maybe it's this idea of, well, it's very direct. It doesn't even say, it's not even telling a story about something happening. It kind of is the story. Meaning, okay, this is about somebody who's getting close to the end of his life. He feels himself dying, and it's not setting the scene. It's not telling this happened, that happened, whatever happened. In some ways, it reminds me of another one I've listened to. What's it called? I'll have to think a minute to recall the name. Give me a second. Seasons in the Sun. That's it. I remember when I listened to that one, it felt so immediate. Well, it was perhaps a bit more sentimental, a little bit more, even a bit more dramatic. Not really dramatic, but it had a lot more reflection and coloring to the story, but still it had that incredibly direct feeling, which is one of the reasons that I fell in love with it when I did. It's not beating around the bush. It's just the voice of the person and their thoughts in this moment of their life. And each one of them, interestingly, is, facing the imminent end of their life. That's one of the things that I think appeals to me about this one and kept me involved all the way to the end, because the first words we hear, "Mama, take this badge off of me. I can't use it anymore." It's almost like it's time for me to give up my earthly identity. It's no use to me anymore. There's so much that's packed into that incredibly simple line, and it's just a simple statement. I mean, it's such a practical thing. Just take this badge off. I can't use it anymore. And it set the tone for the whole song, and the whole song remained consistent with that kind of incredibly direct and, yes, incredibly simple, or what did Clinton Heylin say? Splendid simplicity. It is splendidly simple. Even the chord sequence is so simple. Or the melody. Or, in fact, speaking of melody, I've listened to several Bob Dylan pieces, and this is one of the more, I guess this is the most melodic, soothing, more like song-style piece I've heard him do so far. Now, I know he's done a whole lot of music, so, and many of you have said, well, you need to hear more of him before you judge his melodic output. So that's one thing I noticed, though. This is more melodic, although incredibly simple in its melodic design. But even with that chorus backing, the voices backing the entire song, and that humming and female chorus that's in there, it warms it up, it softens it, it makes it a bit more reflective. All of it very simple, but each element beautifully placed. In fact, I'd like to go back through and examine each of these, or at least some of these elements, in a bit more detail, so we can really start to appreciate not only the careful placement, but also this splendid simplicity of the song a little bit more specifically than just saying it's splendidly simple. So here we go. I like that little bit of cello underneath it all. It sets it as, from the very beginning, that warmth, and you're almost expecting some sort of romantic quality to come through, or else, something a little bit, should I say a little bit epic? Maybe. And I thought I thought I heard a little bit of something that could be interpreted as thunder. Yeah, I don't know if it's thunder, but that little bit could be rolling thunder. I like this. I like this chord sequence that they're doing there. Let's see. Okay, so it's starting on G. That's what the bass line is doing. If we listen, we can hear the bass line singing that. But here, listen to this. The voices walk us into the, should I say, the variant. There are basically two sequences used in this entire song. At least what I noticed the first time through, but we'll listen. We might run into something that I hadn't noticed. But this is G to the D. Then it goes to the A minor. And you can hear a bass line. G, D. And here's where the voices come in. Do on the C. And we're kind of alternating between these two 3-chord progressions. Let's see what comes next. There's the A minor again. It starts to feel pretty predictable, right? There's the C again.
Mama, take this badge off of me. I can't use it anymore. It's getting dark, too dark to see. I feel I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, 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 knocking on heaven's door. Mama put my guns in the ground.
Just those 4 chords, each grouped in a sequence of 3. So we have 1, 5, 2, 1, 5, 4. Then back again, 1, 5, 2, 1, 5, 4. Or if we do letter names, we would say, in this key, it's G, D, A minor, G, D, C. And then back again, G, D, A minor, G, D, C. So simple. And in fact, those are the 4 easiest chords to use to set a piece of music. Usually when somebody starts learning to harmonize by ear, they start with 3 chords. The 1, the 4, and the 5. Well, we've got the 1 and 4 and 5 here. The G is the 1, the C is the 4, the D is the 5. And then the next one we learn to add to bring in a little bit different color and a little bit warmth and richness is the minor 2. Well, that's our A minor. One of the things I like, though, is that instead of starting off with your primary colors, the primary chords, 1, 5, 4, that would come out as, just so unimaginative if we were to use it here. Instead, we start off with 1, 5, 2, and so we immediately get this little bit of warmth and a little more gentle coloration happening in the harmonies. And that is what sets us out on the journey through this piece. Once we have that in our ears, then he brings in the 4. And suddenly we're hearing it in relationship to the 2 and hearing the 2 different endings. And so 4, instead of sounding very primary, like the starting of a piece, it sounds more like a sort of lifting of the first version. So we have warmth and gentleness, a little bit lifted, suspended. And then we come back down. There's our warmth and gentleness. A little bit lighter. And so this is not ordinary primary coloring by number. This is very natural, very instinctive, very carefully chosen use of the simplest elements we can find. Here, looking at the harmonies. It all depends on context and application. I've been saying this so many times recently, I start feeling like maybe you're tired of hearing me say it, but it's true. It depends on context and application. And here, the context is set with that A minor. And then as these chords are applied, we hear everything in the context of that wum bum bum. Then we hear bum bum dum. And when the voices come in, they don't come in on the A minor at first. They come in on the C major phrase. We hear the cello here on A minor. It emphasizes that depth and warmth there. Here come the voices. Perhaps the soothing lightness of the 4. Now everybody all together, but that is how we are set up. That is the context in which we hear the entire piece. And then it simply repeats over and over and over, gently, consistently, predictably. And it becomes the background on the canvas on which this portrait is painted. I can't say that this story is told because it's not a story being told. It's a portrait, and we're hearing in this portrait the voice of the person in our vision. It's his voice, right? Those are some of the things that make this feel so immediate, so direct. Nothing distracting from what we are seeing and absorbing here. And of course, this chorus too, knocking on heaven's door.
Mama, take this badge off of me.
This is the verse.
I can't use it anymore. It's getting dark, too dark to see. I feel I'm knocking on heaven's door.
Interesting.
Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
Knock,
knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
Interesting. I just noticed this as I was playing along. Feels like I'm knocking on heaven's door. That's the last line of the verse, right? Then we come into this sort of chorus, knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door, which, by the way, is the same melodic shape and the same harmonic shape as the verse. There's nothing different. The only thing different are things like the chorus becoming more involved, singing the words. The entire mix is a little bit more unified and consistent, and the rhythm of the words. Instead of "Mama, take this badge from me. I can't use it anymore. It's getting too dark. It's getting dark, too dark to see. Feels like I'm knocking on heaven's door." That's a little bit more narrative. Then we have "Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door," right? That's a little bit more of a rhythmic, lyrical text feel than what we had before. So, back to what I was saying. I just noticed. Feels like I'm knocking on heaven's door, the last line of the verse. When we get to door, we arrive on this 4 chord. Interesting. Well, I was just saying how the 4 kind of gives us a little bit more of a lifted feeling. And it's so interesting to have this, it's getting too dark too dark to see. This line. It's getting too dark to see. And we arrive with C on that darker A minor, darker, warmer, lower. And then feels like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Oh, almost like we've somehow found ourselves, the door is opening and it's moving us upwards. We're feeling lighter. There's a lightness and we could say a rising quality to it, which it's hard to say. It's a little bit too much to say that this was intentionally planned, because the chord progression is simply a pattern which was set up for the entire piece. However, whether it was planned or whether it's mere coincidence, it's one of those incredibly special little details that coincides with what is being expressed in each line of that first verse. Of course, then we get into knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Just change the texture, change what the chorus is doing, change the instrumentation a little bit more lively, and we have a chorus, sort of, at least textually. Musically, it is still exactly the same. We could actually take this a little bit further since we're doing this, why not? It's getting dark, too dark to see. There we are in the darker A minor, and his world is closing in around him. His eyes are losing their vision. Feels like I'm knocking on heaven's door. And as he's saying this, feels like I'm knocking on heaven's door, and we arrive at this F, which is the 4 chord, which is the lightest, most buoyant chord. You know, it's almost like, I want to say, it almost feels like it's the image of him taking flight and moving heavenwards. In other words, on that last chord of the verse, the last word of the verse, when we arrive at door, is the moment he dies. And it works perfectly if we want to take it that far. It works perfectly because then the chorus, even though it's all the same harmonically, we're just dealing with patterns that have been set up. However, the chorus comes in. All the voices singing, knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. That could almost be the angel voices now, right? And he now, having died, he is knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door up there. It's a fun little sort of storyline to explore in the piece. Again, I don't believe that it was intentionally done that way, because it's all about simplicity, and it's simply the setting up of a pattern that feels good and works incredibly well. But I don't know. Maybe he did sit down and think it through to this level. Maybe not. It doesn't matter. The fact is that it exists in the piece. And while we don't necessarily have to commit ourselves to that sort of storyline in the song, we can. And even if we don't, the implication is there. The feel of it exists in the music. Not so extremely as to be grotesque. It's not like he said, okay, I'm going to put a dark chord here. It's unlike everything else because I want it to be a chord representing, it's not that sort of navel-gazing, belabored approach to composition. No. It's the simplicity of it and the fact that the simple layout of the piece is so incredibly appropriate and well suited to the lyrics, to the music, to the entire storyline. This is a great masterclass example of how, if you're going to err on the side of simplicity. Never make it overly complicated unless you have good reason to do so. Because this is the kind of masterpiece that can come out of 4 simple, basic chords. Well, that was my first listen to Knockin' on Heaven's Door by Bob Dylan. This is a special weekend. I'm listening to this piece 2 more times this weekend. And I have no idea who I'm listening to. It's going to be fun. I'm sure, having looked at the structure of the piece, the next listens will be a little bit more attentive towards the interpretation and the way the different artists handled it. We'll do that next. I'll see you soon.